thing that could ever happen to a person.
What is that?
That's my chastity belt.
The co-workers who called in sick that day probably kicked themselves when they heard about this. A story this good only comes around once in a lifetime. Here's what happened. The notoriously strict supervisor had been going full throttle in the conference room, working his way through a meeting that spared basically no one. The employees all had plenty of opinions, but the supervisor was clearly in a mood, so everyone kept their heads down and took it. Then, mid-meeting, he just stopped talking.
Nobody is being squeezed harder than me right now.
Ivan? What's happening?
Help.
911, what's your emergency?
I think my boss just blew a gasket.
The employees looked at each other. Say what you want about the man, but a life is a life. And besides, who was going to sign the paychecks? They called 911. The paramedics arrived, and that's when things got interesting. Embarrassing or not, the rescue had to happen. The employees were simultaneously marveling at the sheer randomness of the universe and quietly pulling out their phones to document this historic occasion for posterity. Here was the problem. The supervisor was wearing a chastity belt with a lock, and it needed to come off fast, or things were going to get a lot worse. But the supervisor was in no state to answer questions. Paramedic Buck had no choice but to turn to the coworkers in the room. That question blew the lid off a second secret entirely.
He swallowed it.
Why did he swallow it?
Because I made him.
Wait, and you are?
Simone, VP West Coast Sales. Also his dom. Mr. Van Pelt is my little dirt boy.
Yes, ma'am.
Every jaw in the room dropped and stayed there. Mine did too, just reading about it. This workplace, it turns out, was just secret after secret after secret. Because who would have guessed that two of the most stiff and proper authority figures in the office had that kind of relationship behind closed doors? No time to process it though. The clock was ticking, and the key situation still wasn't resolved. It got worse. The supervisor had swallowed the key himself, so they had to bring out the heavy equipment. Just looking at the thing was enough to make everyone in the room wince. Getting it anywhere near the relevant area was a whole other problem. In the end, they had to call in the supervisors, let's say, person in charge, and somehow that actually worked.
Nobody said you can wriggle, you filthy worm. Don't move, grease pig. If you move one curly little hair on your disgusting little body, that rusty spigot of yours is gonna get chopped off like you deserve. You hear me?
Yeah.
The man's life was saved. His dignity was not. If I were him, I would be actively researching relocation options to another planet. Still, all things considered, it ended well. He made it out okay, and that's what matters.